Okay, well, it looks like record's working, so welcome everybody. I know there's going to be a few people listening to the recording of this, so right now it is March 8th at 7 o'clock, and you're joining Sherry Gilbert and I on the What is Mindscape webinar. We're going to keep it nice and short and sweet tonight, but I know that I've had a few questions as to really what is the Mindscape course, why you want to take it, how you apply it to your everyday life. And so I thought I would get the expert, the instructor, Sherry, to come on and answer those questions. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you so much, Heather. This is so great that you had this idea to put this together. It's definitely been needed for a long time, so this is a brilliant way to access information and to spread that around easily for people to get an idea of what Mindscape's about. So thank you.
Awesome. So if you guys are noticing a delay between when I talk and when Sherry talks, that's just something that we've got no control over. We tried a couple different ways to take that delay out, but we're just going to move forward with it. So on your screen, you'll see pictures of us lovely ladies, Heather and Sherry, just so you know who's talking. Other than this, we don't really have a lot of slides. This is more about conversation. And Sherry and I are really excited about the upcoming Mindscape course in Regina this month, March 18th to 20th. And we want to get as many people there as we can, and this conversation is to help facilitate that a little bit. So are you ready to start answering some questions, Sherry?
You bet.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with the very, very broad question of what is Mindscape? Like, what are you actually learning, and what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. So we're going to actually understand, first of all, how our five senses lie to us and continually play tricks on our minds. Once we discover that, we're going to learn how to engage with our five senses in a way that allows us to gather more information, and it's actually a lot of fun. So we'll learn about the plasticity of our brains and discover ways that we can access more of the capacity of our brain. So traditionally, we only use about 2 to 7% of our full potential of our minds, and with Mindscape, we can capitalize on the supercomputer capabilities, and that's going to allow us to just really open up different pathways and different understanding of how brilliant we are actually designed, and we just don't know how to use it. So Mindscape's it's a mental technique, and it allows people to manifest their dreams and bring their goals into reality, but it's not just limited to like career goals or successes that we would normally think of goals in, but it's all of the aspects of life. So it might be academic studies, it could be finances, family, relationships, health, just everything that applies to your day-to-day life. So in the Mindscape workshop, we're going to teach you how to access the Alpha Brainwaves. So these I often refer to as the state of active meditation. So you're going to actually learn how to give structure to your intuition. So as our right brain engages, that's like our creative, our intuitive forces that we all possess. We often just shut those down. We're told as kids, no daydreaming, you pay attention, and, just not allowed to follow our gut instincts. So we're going to allow that right brain to engage in its natural, creative, intuitive forces, and then the left brain is given a structure in which it can interpret our intuition. So our left brain really doesn't necessarily like that creative, intuitive process. It would really just like to follow the rules and just be very logical. So we try and with the Mindscape workshop, we give the left brain the structure that it needs to allow that right brain to come online and do its job. So in this way, we get the left and the right brain interfacing, and this allows for the magic of Mindscape to work so effectively in day-to-day life.
That's a really great explanation. I really like that. So what do you say to people who tell you, I don't really have intuition. I don't really work that way. That must be for people who are really intuitive or they have some sort of special skill or talent.
we get that all the time. And bottom line is, we all possess that intuition, but it's just our cultural and societal behaviors and that program us to basically follow the masses and don't think for ourselves and don't be abstract, because that's more difficult to manage. But if we can get into that gut instinct intuition, I've never made a bad decision following my intuition and my gut instinct. So we just need to get people back in touch with that and give them permission to utilize it.
Awesome. I know my experience, so those of you who don't know, my background is I have an engineering degree and I've worked in the engineering field. So, I'm very, very left brain, and I know that when I took the Mindscape course, I did it with a great deal of skepticism that it would actually do anything for me, that I'd actually be able to use it in my everyday life, and I was completely blown away with what my mind could do that I didn't realize, and the information it had access to that I had no idea, and how I could apply it in my everyday life.
Yeah, and so many people struggle with this the same way. And even when I was in my first Mindscape class, I had so much doubt. There's an exercise that we get to engage in at the end that really just ties the whole weekend together, and it brings it into our awareness that we actually do know how to utilize our intuition. And so with that exercise, that's the key component to this, is really having a tangible way to allow yourself to realize that you actually do pick up information and utilize it in a much different way when we're in our Alpha Brainwaves and in our Mindscape workshop than we do in day-to-day life. So it's got a very practical application to it.
Yes, and I know exactly what exercise you're talking about, and I'm not going to give it any more away because I don't want to ruin it for people, but it is just the craziest thing that we do, and you realize what you're really capable of. So it's really cool. My next question for you, Sherry, is, you've talked a little bit about it being intuition and manifesting and, a couple of those key words. So how is Mindscape different than, say, just a really good visualization technique?
Yeah. So in our Mindscape workshop, we're engaged in that alpha brainwave state, and it's actively utilizing our five senses. So we can quickly draw on information from our conscious brain, our subconscious mind, and from universal consciousness. So we get some pretty fantastic results by integrating many different layers other than just plain visualization. So by engaging the five senses, altering our brain wavelength slightly, and alpha brain wave is something that we engage in on a day-to-day life it's not something that's not natural to us. So when we're falling asleep, or when we're waking up in the morning, or when we're really just engaging in something fun, we're oftentimes in that alpha mindset. So we're just really learning how to utilize that in a more effective way and get in contact with what's going on in our conscious mind, allowing us to enter into that subconscious, and then also to access universal consciousness. So you actually create neural pathways in your brain that allow you to experience life in a very different way. And I just have found that Mindscape is a lot more powerful and has so much more depth than just visualization.
Cool. I would totally agree with that. It's as not an instructor, just someone who's taken the Mindscape, I find it difficult to articulate that difference. So thank you for that answer. So when I had talked to Sherry about what some of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight were, one of them was, great, it's a great system or methodology to use, but how would we use it in everyday life? So Sherry, do you think you could share with us a little bit about yourself and how you integrate Mindscape into your everyday life?
That's such a diverse question. I had to giggle when I read it, honestly, because I honestly don't know when I don't use Mindscape in my day-to-day life. So, some of the things that first came to mind were parenting and planning my day. We have 3 kids, And my mom is always amazed at how I'm able to get all three children up and do what they need to do, and I make all their lunches, and they are up and out the door in 30 minutes. And this was when they were even tinier than they are now. So my mom was always just amazed, but I was doing it from the Mindscape workshop. So it just gave me a lot more capacity to manage my time. And so that's probably one of my favorite ways. But the other thing that I use it for is my kids have a really hard time lying to me now, because I have the ability to tune into their subtle energy that they're sending out. So I listen to their answers in a much different way than I would listen to them if I weren't in my Mindscape. And my response is, I have the capacity to respond differently from the Alpha Brainwaves than I do in the busy beta mind that we're accustomed to operating in. I use it in my body talk clinic, so as a body talk practitioner, just to gather information on what that client's needs are, what they're actually saying, because sometimes people have a hard time intellectualizing and speaking what they need, and we have different ways that we can listen to different parts of the body by using Mindscape. So I use it in my business. We also have a ranch, and so, if something's happening with our herd, I will often use Mindscape as a way to communicate with them, to allow them to find a gate easier, or if we need to work through some health issues, or during calving time, I work with the animals in that way to be able to, give a little bit of feedback to my husband who doesn't use Mindscape, but just to give him some understanding of, hey, what is going on, and does this cow just maybe need a little bit more time, or do we actually have an emergency that needs to go to the vet? So I use it a lot in the business application that I have. I no longer need an alarm clock, so I am traditionally up about 3 minutes before my alarm. I still set my alarm after all these years, but that's more of a habit, and maybe still a little bit not trusting that, hey, Mindscape really works. So even after all these years, I make up a backup plan, but I have not had to use my alarm clock to wake me up in probably 6 years. And I love my sleep. And speaking of sleep, it's a fantastic tool for falling asleep. It's also a fantastic tool for creating better quality sleep. And without good quality sleep, we have a hard time staying well. So, yeah, there's just so much. I've used it for relaxation, just being creative and trying to get my advertising done, for problem solving. It's so unlimited. Really, you're only limited by your own mind. And the Mindscape workshop definitely helps to open up the mind and open it up to its possibilities and full potential.
Awesome. I know you just got all the parents excited for all those, but sleep would be the number one for those of us who don't get a lot of sleep with our kids. I'm going to go a little bit off our sort of prescribed questions and sort of as an instructor of Mindscape, what are you seeing your students coming to class hoping to use it for, or what's bringing them there? I know a few of them are body talk practitioners, but many people in your classes are not. So what do you find is drawing people to the Mindscape course?
A lot of people are really seeking out a way to improve their health, or just in a different way to relax. The meditation, people that seek out meditation often will be drawn to Mindscape as well, and it's simply because lots of people get frustrated with meditation because a lot of it is, hey, you have to empty your mind. Well, that's a pretty ginormous task given all that we do in a day and how accustomed we are to thinking. So people enjoy the aspect of relaxation, but with that idea of more of an active meditation, so that you actually have something to think about and do and can still get the benefits of meditation. So we do see a lot of people coming into class from that avenue. We do have businesses that enjoy taking Mindscape into their businesses in terms of bringing it to the table for their employees to utilize, but also for bosses and CEOs to better understand what the needs of the company are and look at the company from more of a life force of its own that requires an understanding to be able to grow and to sustain itself in a healthy manner. So we see a lot of people from different businesses that come in trying to apply the strategies of Mindscape to just enhance creativity, production, efficiencies, and basically to help everybody to get along as well, because sometimes what holds a business up the most is conflict and the ideas of problem solving and not being really certain on what the best approach is for that. So that our Mindscape workshop gives us those tools to be able to access that information and develop those great plans from more of an open-minded position rather than the often beta mind that is closed off, so to speak.
Awesome. You mentioned conflict there, so I'm wondering how can you use Mindscape to, help with the relationships in your life, like a spouse or a partner or other family members?
Absolutely. It's one of my very favorites. When we get into conflict, sometimes it's really difficult to see the other person's perspective, or to, even if we can think we can see it, it's just difficult to understand it. And so we have a capacity in Mindscape to work through conflict in a much different way that fosters compassion, and it actually enhances our empathy, so we get a better idea of what that person is actually sensing and why they're reacting the way that they are. And so then we can tailor our own actions to be able to work in with that energy of that person, and we just get phenomenal results. Oftentimes when we work through conflict in our Mindscape workshop, we don't actually have to do anything, and the conflict seems to somehow resolve itself. And what we think is happening is that we've done the processing and we've done the work, and we have a better understanding of what's happening and why that conflict is occurring. And then there's just this ripple effect that happens. So as we shift our own thoughts and processes about the conflict, that just ripples out, and everyone around us reaps those benefits. So it's pretty fascinating to watch. I do always joke that my marriage has only been able to sustain what it has and gotten through all the conflicts because of the great work that we do in Body Talk and Mindscape. So it's allowed me to find a lot of compassion and empathy for my family and my extended family, my in-laws and my husband, and it just is amazing the shifts and changes that can happen.
Okay, so I've taken Mindscape, and you've got me all excited to take it again and to share it with others. That is so awesome. That kind of answers all the questions that I have. Sherry and I did really want to keep it short tonight so that you could just get a glimpse of what Mindscape can do for you. I hope that this has gotten you as excited as I am. We want to remind you that Mindscape is coming to Regina March 18th to 20th. And the 18th is just the Friday evening, and it's actually open to everyone. So, Sherry, could I just get you to explain a little bit of what the Friday night is?
Yeah, so we go into the public presentation and just learn a little bit about the brain and what it is, that how it works and how we can capitalize on the different capacities of it by just engaging in that alpha mindset. So it's a little bit more of the science behind Mindscape and learning on what we're going to accomplish in class. So it is open to the public, and so it is part of the class, though. So if anybody is registering for the class, we do need you to attend the Friday evening, but it is open to the public as well, so you can bring as many friends as you like.
Yeah, and it's a really great opportunity to have, especially bringing a spouse to understand why you're taking the class and what you're learning about so they can get an idea of it as well. So because Sherry and I got this webinar kind of out later than maybe originally intended, Sherry has been very generous and is offering an extension on the early bird pricing. So that had expired a couple of weeks ago, actually, but she is extending it for those of you who've attended tonight's webinar or are listening to the recording until tomorrow night, March 9th at midnight. You can get the Mindscape course for the early bird pricing of $650. And I'll send out the link for registering when I send out the recording to you all. So that is a really generous offer from Sherry, and I hope that you all take advantage of it. Sherry, is there anything else before we end our webinar tonight that you wanted to say to people?
I really love teaching this workshop, and I love watching the transformations in people and their lives, and I love hearing the feedback that comes out of it. So I'm really excited to come to Regina and teach this class and engage, and I'm really actually excited to hang out with you again, Heather. So you do such a lovely job. So thank you so much for putting this together. It was an absolutely brilliant idea.
Well, I'm really excited for Mindscape. I think it's a brilliant class, and I loved your explanation tonight. I think if you've been listening, you really get a sense of how this is applicable to all the areas of your life in ways that I'm sure you didn't realize before tonight. So once again, thank you to everybody for joining us this evening or on the recording. We hope to see you March 18th to 20th at Mindscape in Regina. And thank you to Sherry for sharing all your wonderful wisdom and answers. And if you have any questions, please email myself or Sherry, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. So have a great evening, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Have a great night.